Hey there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. Today's book review is going to be a continuation of The Dark is Rising sequence by Susan Collins. And so today's book review is book 3 called Greenwitch. And as you imagine from the title Greenwitch, it does have continuing on with the idea and the elements of the magical stuff that's like the foundation. If you haven't seen my other book reviews, you'll want to go back and look at those because this is book 3 of the series. And in this book, this is the shortest of the 3, and it was probably the one of the first 3 that I enjoyed more than the first 2. In this particular book, book 1 had to deal with Simon and Jane and Barney, and book 2 focused on Will. And in book 3, we see them all merged together. So that is a unique style. This particular book was shorter. I will say my son had a difficult time in reading the book, and he's a very avid reader with the back and forth between Will and the children, and they all come together at one point, and they're together back in the same location of the setting of the first book. But again, that can be very confusing, and he's an avid reader, and he really struggled with that. So I do want to make you aware of that. As you can imagine from the title, there is that element of magic. We do see spells brought up in this particular book. I did look those up, and they look to be made up because nothing came up from my searches about the spells that are mentioned in the book. And so, again, I see that sort of akin to Tolkien, but every family needs to make choices for themselves. And so I just want to make you aware of that. In this particular book series, they're back where they were. The Grail has been stolen, so the one that the children found. So they want to find the Grail again. And if you remember in book 1, when they found the Grail, there was another manuscript that was lost with it in the ocean as they tried to get away from the dark, the characters who represented the dark in that story. And so in this particular book, we sort of see that coming back together. So we see the discovery of getting the Grail again, but also getting that manuscript and it being recovered from the ocean. So Jane is invited to this yearly ritual from the local women in this event, or in this town, where they make the Green Witch. And so she has made from branches and all kinds of natural things that are around. And so she's this really large figure. And so she's created, and it's this whole ritual. And then they throw her into the ocean, into the sea, in hopes that she will give the coastal town fair weather and protection. The Dark, like I said, has taken the Grail, and they are sort of hoping to get their power onto the Green Witch in order to find out where that lost manuscript is. So the Green Witch, she sort of comes to life in the ocean, but more so in dreams to Jane. And so she shares with Jane that she's hiding the secret, that she has a secret, and she doesn't want anyone to tell what her secret is. And so Jane, before the Green Witch is thrown over the edge of the cliff after it's making, she looks at it and she kind of thinks it seems sad. And so one of the quotes is in that when she says it, she says she did not see the Green Witch. She did not like the Green Witch, I apologize. It frightened her. There was something menacing in its broad, squat shape. Yet it was hypnotic too. She could scarcely take her eyes off it. She had always thought of witches as being female, but she could not feel no she quality in the Green Witch. It was unclassifiable like a rock or a tree. And it sort of goes on about how, like, she knew suddenly out there in the cold that the silent image somehow held within it more power than she had ever sensed before in a creature or a thing. Thunder and storm and earthquakes were there, and all the forces of earth and sea. It was outside time, boundless, ageless, beyond any line drawn between good and evil. Jane was contemplating this Green Witch, and she does pray, not pray, but she like wishes like for it to have happiness, and ultimately like that wish that Jane made, like later the Dark tries to command the power of the Green Witch, and of course the Green Witch and like water is seen outside of light and dark, like it just is, and so it's this eternal power idea, and so it can't be commanded by light or dark, and the dark tries to command it, and that the guy who's trying to do it lacks the power and authority to do so. And so we see his demise in that regard. But what it ultimately does is it gives Jane, it releases to Jane, because of her kind heart, the grail and the manuscript message that they needed. I would definitely make sure that you go and check my written review. It has some of the particular things in the story related to the magic or the spells, so that way you can see them yourself and you can kind of look online and see what you think about that. Again, you're going to see a lot of the magical elements in this particular book, and if that's something that you're against or your child may be very sensitive, we also see a lot of those situations between dark and light, and they can be very ominous the way that they're presented in the story. And so I definitely want to caution you that may be an area of sensitivity for your reader and may not be something that you want them to read.